Welcome to the show. It's story time with Garrett Horner, and today is the epic, most influential stage in bike racing history, in my opinion. It's 2006, stage 17 of the Tour de France. Floyd Landis' epic solo ride off the front of the favorites, all the way to the line with the fight to bring back the leader's jersey. Epic. Absolutely just an amazing stage today. Let me give you a little bit of a history of how the 2006 Tour had gone. Floyd Landis had been dominant from start to finish all the way up until stage 16. So dominant that he'd had the jersey at one point in time and let Oscar Pereiro, who was 30 minutes almost down on GC, get back and take the race leader's jersey. He takes it back from him later in the stages, then loses it on an epically hard stage 16 with mountains, where he blew up on the last climb of the De la Toussière. Now, we all went to bed that night knowing that Floyd had lost the jersey. He was sitting outside of the top 10. I was rooming with Cadel Evans at the time, and before we went to bed, Cadel and I would always discuss what we thought of the stage, what we thought might come the next day. I spent 2 years with Floyd Landis in 2000 and 2001 with Team Mercury. I knew him quite well. I knew Floyd was not going to come to the Tour de France so that he can finish 6th or 5th or something. If he just ran a soft, easy stage and had good legs again, if they'd return, yes, he could just light it up, win the stage, take some minutes back, but he still wasn't going to win the Tour de France. When I'm having this discussion with Cadel Evans the night before, we're looking over the profile, the race Bible, and we see this stage, and right away you can tell it's going to be 5 massive, big, hard climbs, all coming right after each other. There's no valleys. All it is drop down the hill, start the next one. The only small flat section was from the penultimate climb to the Jeu de Plan. That was the only part that was flat enough where a single rider was going to lose massive time to a group of 4 or 5 chasing him. When I'm discussing it with Cadel Evans in the room, I'm telling Cadel 100%, no doubt about it, Phonak is going to drill it into the first climb. They're going to light this thing up, and then they're going to send Floyd Landis on the Col de Saisy from the bottom to the top. That's the only way he can move himself back into GC, some kind of significant advantage where he can go top 3 or top 5. I know Floyd wants to win, but I'm actually thinking that night he's going to try to move into a podium or a top 5. I'm not thinking he can move into the win. I'm just thinking he's going to put on a show. He's not here to finish 11th or 8th or 7th. Top 5, he might be a little more satisfied. A podium, that's a little bit more redemption back for what happened on stage 16. But to win the Tour de France, that's a little bit outside of what I was thinking. But I knew Phonak was going to light it up. When I'm speaking with Cadel, I point out the first climb, and we're talking about it. I said, Cadel, man, whatever happens, if Floyd is riding like he has been at this 2006 Tour de France, minus yesterday's stage, and he goes up this Col de Saisy with the kind of form that we've already seen him have, don't go with him if you're in the red. I'm begging Cadel, don't go with Floyd if you're going to be in the red. It's a 200-kilometer stage, 125-mile stage, 5 big mountains, all right after each other. If you're in the red on the first mountain, there's no way you can be good on the last climb. So I'm begging Cadel at this point in time, don't follow Floyd unless you're comfortable. If you're comfortable, follow him. It's a fantastic move, right? But if you're not comfortable, if you're going in the red, don't do it. So when we went to bed, that's what I was thinking. Now I'll cut to a clip of an interview that I did that morning. I was doing diaries every day. And so each morning I was getting interviewed. I was getting interviewed after the stage. Make sure you make sure you watch this video from start to finish. I'll put the plug in there. It's absolutely amazing. It shows my interview at the beginning, but it also shows all the interviews at the end from Cadel Evans, Frank Schleck, my coworker at NBC, Christian Vanderveld's interviewed there at the end, and Michael Rasmussen's interviewed at the end. It is fantastic to see the difference between how I'm looking at the beginning of this stage and how these legendary riders of the Tour de France are looking at the finish of the stage after we had been chasing Floyd Landis for 100 miles, basically, over 5 mountain passes. So here's the video, and then I'll pop back in.
Okay. Let's talk about your fellow American Floyd Landis. He had, an awful day. He said yesterday, picked a really bad day to have a bad day on the bike. What happens? I mean, in some time in your career, you've had a day like that. What happens and what goes through the head when you're having a day like that?
Yeah, sometime in my career, about a week ago. I don't think we gotta go too far back to know last time I had that day. So it's possible. Everyone always says that you have a bad day during the tour. So far, I've done it only 2 times, but each time I've always had a bad day too. Floyd picked the worst, well, not the worst day, but he picked one of the worst days you could possibly have, if not the worst during the tour, to have a bad day. And you can tell he was definitely out of energy and going to the top, just trying to salvage whatever time he could there. So hats off to him for fighting it all the way to the top. He's had a fantastic tour, and maybe can pull some miracle out, but that's a lot of time to make up now.
Yeah.
So when the stage takes off, we're going down a slight descent, and the field is going amazingly fast, folks. I mean, we're just blazing. It's a big highway road, and we're doing about 30K down it the whole time at 50, 60K an hour. We turn off that. We go up a slight bit of a little climb. It's not even registered on the profile of the stage. But after that, we end up in this valley from about 50 to 60K period, and that's when Phonak really starts to light this up. Right away, I'm at the front the whole time. Like I said, I expected Phonak to really be aggressive on this stage. I'm directly near their team, and we're going through this valley, and it just twists through this valley from one side of the mountain to the other side, but it's really kind of narrow but fast road, and Phonak is just fully sprinting as we're getting ready to start the Col de Saisy, a 15-kilometer long climb, almost 10 miles at 6.5% average. When we start to climb, the road bends like this, it curves like this, and the climb just takes off, almost a straight road, takes off like this, and then just pitches up at like 6-7% immediately. So instead of following the curve like that, we veer a little bit with a little chicane of a left-right, and then we start 6-7% for about 400 meters till you do a hairpin turn at the top and continue that steepness. By the time we'd reached the left hairpin, the whole field was blown up. So 400, 500, 600 meters into the climb, we start the hairpin, we go another 200-300 meters, and I can look straight down this climb and see where the climb started just a few hundred meters back, and the field is already blown up. I mean, blown up in pieces. It's all over the place. Now remember, stage 16, the day before, the only reason the field was even respectable in size is because they didn't kick out the 100 guys who didn't make the time cut the day before. So we'd already had a massive stage on stage 16 over unbelievable climbs, Col de la Coiffure. Everybody was tired already. When we get 700 meters into this climb, I'm looking down, it's blown up to pieces. I'm going as hard as I can to stay in the front group. We're about 30 guys strong in size. As we get about a third of the way up the climb, I can feel I'm getting close to the red zone, and I know I can't be in the red if I want to be able to work for Cadel Evans throughout the rest of this stage. Immediately, I look behind me. I see there's a group behind, and so I know I have to sit up because I can't get into the red. So I got to let the front group of 30 go. As I'm dropping off, easing up off the pedal, I see Floyd punch it, and that group disintegrates. So now you have just groups chasing everyone. You have Floyd with the front group. He's got all the favorites, the top 10 guys up there, all minus Oscar Pereira. I don't believe he followed Floyd. I believe he tried to, but couldn't. But you have, of course, Carlos Sastre. You had Minchoff up there. Cadel Evans went with Floyd and Landis. Even though I begged him the night before not to go, he still jumped with Floyd. All of the favorites, Michael Rogers, Andreas Kloden, they all tried to follow, and then Floyd Landis rode them off the wheel. I didn't get to see that part. I just got to see the front group of 30 disintegrating as I'm dropping out of the back of that group, and Floyd riding off with the top 10 favorites minus the race leader. Now, I'll go into my own story here because it's the Chris Horner story, right? I don't know what happened up there at the front. Behind, I'm backing off, trying to stay at 90%, 95%, anything but not be in the red. I'm with a small group of my own now because the front group had disintegrated and I've caught some guys. We get about 3/4 of the way up to the climb and I latch back on to what I thought was the front group. I thought this was it. This is the front group. It's all single file line. I see the Costa Pan riders with race leader Oscar Pereira setting the tempo on the front. Now my job is to get up to Cadel Evans at this moment. Like I said, I hadn't been in the red. I never touched the red. I got close, but never go in the red this early into a Tour de France stage or you're going to have a really bad day. So as I'm passing everyone single file, they're all on the left side of the road, just lined out, and I'm passing everyone so that I can get back up to Cadel Evans. And as I'm passing everyone, I'm taking inventory in the group. Okay, there's 10th, there's 9th, there's 8th, there's 7th. There's my boy Cadel Evans. There's the race leader in the yellow jersey. There's Carlos Sastre. Everybody's all back together. That's what I thought. Immediately at that moment, I thought the whole group's back together. It's under control. Now we're going to go into a steady tempo for the next 3 climbs, and then it's going to have a big explosion on the Jus Plan. Okay. When I get up to Cadel Evans, though, by the time I finally reach his wheel, it dawns on me because I'm thinking, why is Costa Pan, why are they still riding this hard on the front? I mean, I'm almost 100% here. We're going hard. I can't figure out why Costa Pan is riding so hard on the front. And then, of course, it dawns on me, I never saw Floyd Landis. And so I look up, I look back down the group. I passed all these guys already back down here. I passed 20 guys to get up to Cadel. But I wasn't taking inventory. It never dawned on me to think about Floyd. Should have, but it never did. So now I start looking back. I realize Floyd Landis isn't with us. And that's why we're going 100%. And then my eyes light up because I know it's going to be an epic stage. I get up right up next to Cadel Evans. And I look at Cadel and I'm on his right side. So I look to the left and I say, Cadel, you okay? How are you going? How are you going? Good. Cadel Evans, great guy. Loved working for him. Loved riding with him. But he was incredibly difficult to read. Probably one of the most hardest riders in the pro peloton I've ever come to actually read his expressions to see if he's hurting or not, because he always looked like he was hurting. So I get up next to him, and remember, we're only 60, 70K into the stage, maybe 75, and I look over at him. Cadel, how you doing? He looks at me, and his eyes are glazed over, and he just says, as much sugar and food as you can bring me. And I thought, oh man, this is going to get ugly, right? I mean, this is climb 1. We have 4 more big climbs to go. This is climb 1 on a 125-mile stage. This is going to be an epic day. We saw it coming the night before, but I didn't know it was going to be this epic. No one did. No one understood the consequences of what this stage would bring for the history of the sport and for every young rider that's entering the sport now. This stage is epic, and the history is unbelievable there. I spent that whole day going from Cadel Evans' wheel back to the car, getting Cokes, bottles, juice bottles, gels, food, Snickers bars, everything. I would drop 30 guys, 40 guys back, go back to the car, get as much as I could hold in my pocket. I never seen how 2 guys could eat so much food in a bike race. Everything I'd hand to Cadel at the top of every climb, he'd have done in the first part of the descent. By the time we got to the bottom, he's out of water, I'm out of water, he's out of calories, I'm out of calories. I'm going back to the car again, getting food from the car, racing back through the front group as the front group is on the gas all of the time. Regardless of any interview or any quote that you saw, especially from the reporters who thought that, they just let Floyd Landis ride away on the Col de Saisy, the first climb of the stage. They just let him ride away. Floyd did not just get let to ride away. He rode away from everyone and he crushed souls and dreams in the meantime by doing so. So we're chasing full gas the whole time. So every time I'm dropping back to the car, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I just hope I can get from the car back to the back of the group and then past 30, 40 guys to find Cadel again, get him his food, keep him out of the wind for as long as I can before I got to go back to the car. And we were eating and drinking, like putting water in like a camel. It was just insane. We were just, every place we could, we were putting in calories. So I'm going back and forth. We go up over the climbs. The second climb is the Col de Arvez. Another really difficult climb, but I want to discuss before how this stage really favored in a single rider being up the road. Because, I mean, we all know Floyd had tested positive later on this stage, and so that understands why Head and Shoulders above a lot of other riders, but not Head and Shoulders. Riders are equally prepared throughout the races. Some are, some aren't. Floyd clearly tested positive here, so there's, I'm not letting any mouse out of the bag or something like that about why he was riding so good. But clearly at this point in time in 2006, it's not even amongst all the riders on how riders were preparing for races such as the Tour de France. So he's putting on an epic ride, but even if you're prepared the way Floyd Landis was for this stage, you have 5-10 different guys chasing you. You have the top 10 on the Tour de France chasing you on the last climb of the stage. What made it possible, folks, really was that every descent was twisty and technical going down. When we got to the bottom of the climb, you go across a small little bridge and you go straight back uphill again. Okay, what Floyd did could have never been accomplished on a different stage that had a 20K or 30K flat valley before you started the next epic Tour de France climb. It needed to be done on this stage. Everything had to come together at this moment in time. It had to be just that perfect storm. You got a great descent followed by a small bridge, a climb starting again, a twisty descent on top of that. If you have a twisty descent, we were sprinting out of every corner there was on the descent. Okay, it was so complicated to eat and drink at that point in time. Basically, you were holding the bottle with your teeth, braking going into the descent climb or descent switchback turn. Come out of the switchback, start sprinting, sit up, grab your bottle, put as much fluid as you can in your mouth, put your bottle back down into the water bottle cage, hit the next 3 or 4 turns sprinting, grab your water bottle out, drink it, grab your gel, start shooting gels in. That was the only place you could eat on this particular stage was going downhill. I couldn't eat going up because I'm maxed out. I was maxed going up every climb there was on this stage. Now, after we go up the Col de Arves, we drop down the Col de Arves and we start the Col de Colombière. And this climb is 12K long, 6%, very complicated, hard climb. One of the more epic ones. They use it often in the Tour de France. Before the summit comes, 1K before the summit, call the car up, the car comes, drop back, grab bottles, sprint as hard as I can, go over the top, hand Cadell Evans everything that I got in my pockets, eats it and drinks it. We drop down the descent. We're going to start the Côte de Chantillon, I believe it's pronounced. This is the smallest climb on today's stage. It's only 5K and it's only 5%. I'm at the very back and I'm with the telecom guys, and I believe it's Michael Rogers that dropped his chain. I don't know if it was Rogers for sure, but one of the three. I'm with 3 telecom guys there at the back. One dropped their chain, and so instantly because the chain drops, they can't pedal, and instantly they lose speed. And it's Jens Voigt from CSC on the front sprinting over this climb. This thing's 5%, and he's in a full sprint. The 3 telecom guys in front of me are just opening up an instant gap, and they stop. They get the chain back on, and then they just start sprinting. I never hurt so much in this stage that I did at this particular moment behind the telecom riders as they're sprinting to get back to the front group, and I'm hanging on for dear life. We go over the top of that climb, and that was the penultimate climb on the stage before the legendary epic Col de Jouplan starts. This part of the stage is the only flat section, maybe 10-15K, I can't remember exactly. But it has a slight crosswind right to left. At this moment, CSC is on the front. I think Stuart O'Grady there. Christian Vanderveld's on the front. Jens Voigt is on the front. And these 3 riders are going 100% because they know their job's done as soon as we make the left turn to start the Col de Jouplan. So basically, there's 4 or 5 CSC guys with Color Sastre and Frank Schleck sitting on to get a draft as they're going from the echelon. The wind's coming right to left, so they're echelon like this. And then it's single file, and we're all in the gutter. I'm about 3 or 4 guys behind them, but I'm riding out into the wind the whole time while the CSC guys are on the front driving as hard as they can. I'm out into the wind so that Cadell Evans could sit here solidly and get the draft from the crosswind and safely see the road in front of them. In an echelon, when they're all lined up like this, all the guys lined up this way can see in front of them and see the road and the dangers that are coming, the potholes, the rocks, branches, whatever might be in that road that could cause you to crash or worse, get a flat tire or something like that and end your Tour de France or your hopes and dreams of winning a Tour de France. So as their CSC is echelon like this, they're sliding back. I'm right back here, but I'm out in the wind. This allows Cadell Evans to get a better draft and stay rested before the Col de Joux plan starts, but it also allows him to see maybe about a 6-10 foot gap in front of him. So if something pops up that is dangerous, he can hop over it or I can move over or something, and it gives me a line of sight because I have no rider directly in front of me. So I can even maybe point something out to Cadell that's dangerously coming. So I know at this point in time, my race is over when we make this left turn. So folks, I'm just sitting there like, come on, man, when's the left turn coming? Please, please, give me the left turn, give me a left turn. I've never suffered so much in my life as I did on this stage to be there for Cadell Evans. It was unbelievable, and I'm just praying for this left turn to start so the pain can end. It was a great day. If I knew I could stay with the leaders, it would have been amazing, but I know I'm not going to be there with the 10 best in the Tour de France. I was riding with the top 25, which probably is not the top 10, of course. So when the left turn gets ready to start, I'm just begging and pleading. It finally comes. We make the left. I ask Cadell if he needs anything, a bottle left, a gel in my pocket. He's good to go. I wish him good luck, and I sit up and raise my hand, and I drop through the group of, there's probably 30, 45 guys left. I go through the group. I go back to the car. When the car passes me, I tell them, give me Snickers, give me Cokes, some gels, 2 fresh bottles. They hand that stuff to me. As soon as they hand it to me, folks, I just pulled over to the right, hopped off my bike, and basically had a Coke and a Snickers there for about 5 minutes. Got fueled up, and then I jumped on my bike, and I strolled home to the finish and lost another 20 minutes. From the time I pulled off from Cadell's wheel to the finish line, which is pretty close, the last climb there's 12K long, and then you got a crazy descent. But in 12Ks, I lost 20 minutes. And so that's how big of a stage and an impact it had on me. Now, after the stage finished, I'll put another video in here that shows you some of the interviews from Cadell Evans of just how wrecked he was.
He was incredible strong on the climb. You know, I was there and I thought I made an error trying to stay with him for too long because it put me in the red, and I, you know, from then on, I really felt it, and that's what you really feel in this third week. But he just rode everyone off the wheel, literally off the wheel, and just went away. You know, they made a mistake early in the year, Phonak giving away that time to Pereiro, but today I think T-Mobile and CSC made a big mistake. So, you know, I haven't got a team to chase. I was really lucky today. Chris just turned himself inside out for me like he does every day. Chris Horner, he got there with me on the last climb, but you know, he. You know, I'm with one guy, T-Mobile. I have their whole team there, and they let Landis go like that. You know, you know, what can I do? It's beyond my control. I'm here. I'm almost, you know, I had Chris Horner with me in the finish today, but that's my team. You know, in the mountains, in these hard stages, me and him. Good on you, Cadell.
Cadell Evans was crazy, just a crazy, fantastic teammate. Super emotional, and especially emotional when we're talking bike racing, and especially emotional when we're talking about at the Tour de France. His career really evolved around riding good at the Tour de France with the Lotto team, and so every time the stress is building up on him when we arrive at the Tour de France, he gives great interviews, emotional interviews, and people love him, so I'll post that up for sure. I'll attach that to the link. And so when the stage finished, of course, we know Floyd Landis won the stage, tested positive later, and those effects of that positive is what really started everything happening in the sport to change the sport to cleaner sport. Okay, everybody at this moment in the sport, throughout my belief anyways, is guilty of one thing or another when it comes to doping and the doping issue. You're either on a team that was doing it, you know guys that were doing it, you're doing it yourself. I don't hate Floyd. I love Floyd. Was a great teammate. I had dinner with him last year, I believe it was, here in Bend, Oregon. I loved my time racing with Lance Armstrong. We already know on this channel, I've spoken about my love and affection when it comes to Johan Bernal. Crazy the emotions that are going through when I talk about this stage, because that day of racing was as epic as it gets in bike racing. But because of the effects that stage had on the rest of cycling, like young kids out there right now at this moment, they got to thank Floyd Landis, Lance Armstrong, Johan Bernal. I know it sounds crazy, right? You're like, Chris, you're crazy. No way, we got to hate those guys. Floyd changed the sport on this stage, okay? He didn't want to, but it did. This stage changed everything. So you need to go back and watch this stage, because if you're a cycling fan, this is it. This is what has changed the sport of cycling and everything that we know. The young guys out there that are able to race their bikes clean now and don't have to worry about finding a job and doing a lot of drugs and stuff in order to find that job. They can win bike races being clean. Those guys got to thank this stage 17. And they got to thank a lot of the guys like Lance Armstrong and Johan Bernal, all the guys that got lifetime suspensions through USADA and stuff. That stuff is, I don't believe in that. I never have. We all know what the sport was like at that particular point in time, and nobody was innocent. So when you see what this stage had an effect and you look at it, there's many stages. Even when you go back to my Vuelta win that I talked about here on Storytime with Chris, that was as epic as it gets for a one-day race that affects a Grand Tour and stuff like that. But this 2006 Tour de France stage is still having effects positively on the sport. 3 days after the Tour de France, this positive from Floyd Landis had a massive negative effect on the sport. For years to come was negative. Now you look at it, and now for centuries to come, this stage, Floyd Landis's, the arguments that people have with Lance Armstrong and Johan Bernal having to serve a lifetime ban, they're taking the hit so that everything else is better in the sport. And I'm not a believer in a lifetime ban. I think that's most ridiculous, especially when we all know what we know. So anybody that looks at USADA should have known what we know and know that nobody deserves a lifetime ban. Both these jerseys I'm super proud of. This jersey was worn on the stage throughout the whole day. It's unwashed sitting here. I don't know if there's another one from that stage. You know there'll be a yellow jersey out there saved from the stage. You know the polka dot jersey's probably saved from that stage. I know the green jersey's saved from that stage because I got it right next to me here on the right. Robbie McEwen signed it, gave it over to me that night. So I have not just one, but two jerseys from the 2006 Stage 17. One last thing before I go, to really truly understand how much this stage had an effect on the cycling world. This stage, because of the doping accusations later, because of course, Floyd Landis coming out about everything, teams folded, sponsorships left cycling, teams folded, marriages were destroyed, people were divorced because of this stage, riders lost sleep because of this stage. It affected the pro peloton from top to bottom, from the moment you woke up through the night of sleep you were having. That's why this stage is the most important one-day race in the cycling history. If you like today's story, like and subscribe, and we'll get into more details and, of course, bring you more stories as we come. Hope you enjoyed the information. Make sure you watch the videos on this stage. It is legendary, and it gets no better than what you'll watch on Stage 17 of the 2006 Tour de France. Thanks for tuning in.